Welcome to the Silver Creek Insights podcast. I'm your host, Felice Wiley. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by a true data visionary, Sergio Cuoto, Senior Data Engineer at Adevinta, Spain. Sergio has led the design and implementation of self-service, governance-first data platforms using Spark, Airflow, Databricks, empowering major sites like InfoJobs, Fotocasa, Coches.net, Motos.net, and Milanuncios to turn raw data into powerful insights. Beyond building systems for millions of users, he's also a passionate educator teaching Spark, machine learning, and machine learning operations to the next generation of data professionals. Sergio, welcome. To start us off, can you walk us through your journey from your early days mastering Spark and Scala to spearheading a platform that sort of scales across multiple verticals while embedding governance by design?
Yes, well, hi, Felisa. Thank you very much for the invite. It's a pleasure to be here. I hope we can share some interesting insights here. And yes, I started working with data in 2014. First, it was with Hadoop, which now sounds a lot of old technology, but in those days it was really new technology, at least in Spain, because we
Yeah.
are always a little late in innovation, you know. And then I moved to Spark a couple of years later in 2016, I think, if I remember correctly. And from then on, I've been working with Spark and main focus in Scala, but nowadays also a little bit in Python because it's more fashionable right now.
Now, how did you even know that you wanted to get into data?
Oof, that's a great question. I think I didn't even know until I was already working with data. I was working before data from 2011 until 2014 with old technologies such as COBOL and PLSQL and plain Java. And then in that year, I have a chance to move to data. And I say, okay, I don't really know what is this about because in those days in Spain we have little information, at least mine, about these kind of technologies and distributed computing and so on. But I fully embrace this the opportunity and move to it. Yes.
I think that's really a unique beginning because I think it's also like, I feel very similar. When I first I was working in sales and then I dipped my toes into business intelligence and I was like, "Oh, this is interesting." And I just started learning more and more. I never really knew about it growing up or in school. I didn't really think about it, but once it was in front of me, I was like, "This is the path."
Yes. Sometimes it's just about curiosity, and
Mhm.
then sometimes you like it and sometimes you don't.
Yeah, curiosity and, like, the ability to always want to learn more and that open-mindedness to that
Yeah.
unknown. So, from your early days in 2014 to now leading data platform initiatives, what was the most pivotal moment that shaped your career trajectory?
Well, I think, being honest, the most pivotal moment was moving from a consultancy company to
Mhm,
a product company, a final company, we say here in Spain. Consultancy is great because you learn a lot. You spend months jumping from client to client and from project to project. So it's really great to learn a lot, especially in your early career.
mhm.
But in the end, I personally like more being in a product company because you own the solution from the very beginning until the maintenance in production for years. So there is no, how to say, no, there is no escape from technical debt. No, it's typical jumping from one company to another every few years. In product company is less possible. So you have to really do the things properly to avoid being trapped in your own trap.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. And what was the biggest professional challenge that you faced, like, building some of these data pipelines at Repsol, and what did you do to overcome them?
I think in Repsol specifically, the main issue was the cultural shift because
Mm,
Repsol is an oil company, a huge company here in Spain, and considerable big company in Europe. And it's an old company. It was a state-owned company in years ago. So they still have some kind of mindset related to this their past, right? So in the first thing we need to tackle there was the trust in the data pipeline because they were not used to work as such. They were used to build the things they need and just that. There were no organized governance or anything else. It was all best effort. So we need to focus on creating trust in the process and in the data.
Oh, so because that's a lot to do. Like, there's a huge company, a cultural shift, a culture of people who don't trust the data, and you have to find a way to overcome it. So you mentioned building trust first, and then you said incorporating like a data governance.
Yes.
What is your typical checklist for when you go to a new company and you're just like trying to figure out like which things to tackle first? Like, how do you approach that?
Well, first, I think when you arrive on a new company, you need to know what is this company doing and how is this company working. Not arrive there with a lot of ideas, but without listening to the business people. And so you need to listen first and then start proposing if you feel so. By especially in diverse companies such as Repsol, because it's an oil company, but there were a lot of departments: exploration, extraction, refineries, also retailing, because they have a lot of gas stations in Spain. So you need to listen to each of the stakeholders and then start building a solution for their needs.
Mhm. So you've been both a practitioner and an educator. So how has teaching Spark, Scala, and machine learning operations shaped the way that you design production systems?
Well, I think teaching is the thing I enjoy the most
Yeah.
in my professional career because I know people are really happy to learn and they are really grateful, and you can learn a lot also for them because
Hmm.
teaching forces you to simplify concepts and break inertia because sometimes you work and you code without really thinking what is below that. But teaching, you need to make deep knowledge, have deep knowledge of these topics, and so this forces you to keep up to date. You need to
Yeah.
focus on new technologies, learn a lot of new issues, and sometimes the companies, the corporate, are still not using these new technologies, but you already have to teach them. So that's something that can help you then later in your work, in your professional environment, maybe new ideas or opportunities to improve processes and so on.
So you mentioned simplifying concepts. What's the most complex concept you figured out a way to simplify that you kind of sort of it's always your go-to when you're teaching?
Well, I think it's related to MLOps, ML operations, because it's really typical to start coding your model, your machine learning model in a notebook. Okay, it's great, it's working, have a 90% accuracy or whatever, but then you have to deploy it to production and you have to keep it working through the months or years. And this is something that many people, when they start learning about machine learning, doesn't even think about it because it's
Mhm.
something is far away of the learning process. It's the like the last thing you need to learn, and I think that is something you need to explain carefully because people are really happy working with notebooks, and because notebooks are great, but in production are well, are not enough and are a bit dangerous also.
And you mentioned having deep knowledge. What are your go-to ways of staying up to date with technology and like the latest issues and solutions?
Well, I focus on learning. I stay alert of new changes and new versions of Spark or whatever technology I'm interested in. And the most difficult thing I think is to find time to learn because you have your work, your personal life, and some everything, all that. No, so you have to balance your work with your personal life and also with your learning time. And LinkedIn for me is a great place to be alert of new of changes because a lot of people are publishing articles or proof of concepts and many other things that you can be aware of them and say, okay, this is interesting for me. I should learn this, or okay, this is not so interesting, but I would like to read this as well.
And how do you manage to find that time?
Oof, it's really difficult for me. I have 2 kids, so it's not
Yeah.
easy.
Oh my goodness. I try to dedicate 2 hours Monday mornings for my LinkedIn perusing, but it's hard. It's just I don't know, to me, LinkedIn's another social media site, and I try to stay off social media as much as possible.
Yeah.
I feel like it's also gotten so convoluted with people just, like, constantly selling themselves, and I'm like, "You guys
Yes, yes.
lost the authenticity in my eyes." But do you follow any newsletters, or do you have any favorite, like, authors?
Specific newsletters.
Yeah,
I don't know. I follow several people in LinkedIn, and I don't really have time to read newsletters as such. So I
um,
follow people on LinkedIn, and then I read something that is interesting for me. For instance, I follow Zach Wilson, is a really known influencer in data engineering. Also, Marvelous MLOps is a great page as well.
okay, well, we'll have to get a list from you and, like, link them in the in the description so others
Yes,
can check them
we
out
can share each other list.
yeah, for those who wanna learn more. So, data contracts and source-aligned data products seem central to your work at Adevinta. Can you share a light bulb moment where these approaches transformed outcomes?
Yes, we start working in data contracts because we were working like a help desk department. We were arriving in the morning, check for every broken pipeline, and then start fixing one by one until I know 12 in the morning or so. So we spend more than half of the day fixing issues that most of the times were the same kind of issues. So we start addressing this problem by creating data contracts in the source line step, because as much left as possible, so you can avoid errors you can detect errors and avoid them in the early steps of the data lifecycle. The main light bulb moment, sorry, is when we are starting seeing a reduction, a huge decrease in this kind of issues on a daily basis. We went from spending, I don't know, maybe 4 hours per day working in this kind of issues to 4 hours per week or something like that, which is a great improvement for us. So we
That
can spend time building products and extracting the value from their data.
that's amazing, from 4 hours a day to 4 hours per week. That's a huge improvement. Smart way of using tech to, like, automate the work that we're doing and make it easier for us. In your experience now, what are the most common pitfalls that engineering teams face when moving from ad hoc scripts to governed self-service data platforms?
Well, the main pitfall is that working in local with ad hoc scripts is really easy. So you always can do that. You can download the data and just build something in your local environment, and there is another people problem
Mm.
to deploy it to production. That's really easy, but for not for other people. So the main pitfall is being able to convince. And again, it's a cultural shift. Being able to convince users, data analysts, data scientists, or whatever profile is working in that way, that is good in the long term, because in short term it may look something wrong for them.
No, that makes sense. And security and compliance by design, like they have become hot topics. Have you baked those into your data platform from day one and or what challenges emerged from that?
Yes, again, we focus on fixing issues with compliance specifically as
Mhm.
left as possible in the data lifecycle, because things like privacy in the European Union are huge. We have a lot of regulations about that, and we need to identify personal data, being able to know where that personal data is, and being able to delete it when the client asks for us to delete it. So moving this detection to early steps in the process will really help us to being able to apply GDPR and other kind of regulations in a governed way, in a proper way, not only in best effort. About challenges, again, is the cultural shift. Is always the cultural shift
Yeah.
because it's not technical. The issues maybe, o sea, usually, because um, embedding security and governance in the development life cycle is great in the long term, but in the short term, it can look like it can be received with frictions due to the need to deliver quick results and pressure from business, that kind of issues. Yes.
So you mentioned just data in the European Union and GDPR. I remember GDPR when it was first, I guess the word is went into effect or whatnot. I used to work for a location data company. And we used to have services. We used to have an office in London, I think. In 2018, GDPR hit. Come 2020, I think the office shut down. Do you remember? And it really hurt that business arm. Do you remember where you were or where you were working when GDPR went into effect in 2018? And what was like going through your mind? And what were the steps that you took in order to make sure that these policies were incorporated into whatever company you were with?
If I remember correctly, I was working in a bank. And
Mhm.
banks are, again, a huge company with a lot of regulations and compliance and needs to report data and so on. And GDPR as you said, a great deal in there. And also, I remember we were using Parquet to store data. So deleting data from Parquet was really difficult and really complex and time consuming. Nowadays with Delta, it's really easier, but in those days it was really difficult. Yeah.
And are you pro GDPR, against GDPR? What's your take on when it comes to just like yeah, what's your take?
Well, I'm not. I have not a legal background, obviously, but I think privacy is really important for people, for users. And you can reduce maybe privacy if you give the users trust. Again, trust in your process, in the use you make of their data. But that's really complicated for corporate because people usually don't trust corporate enterprises. So GDPR, I think, I don't know specifically, but privacy regulations are good for people, I think.
No, I agree. That was a trick question. I'm in agreement. Privacy is incredibly important, especially in terms of how companies gather their data, allowing people to access their own data, because the companies are essentially profiting off of individual people. Why do you think it took so long for privacy laws to get in effect?
I don't really know. I think
Yeah.
I guess that is complicated to regulate something that we weren't working before with. The
Yeah.
amount of data we are working with nowadays is huge compared with a few decades ago. So regulation is sometimes is behind the development of the industry. No, a new industry develops, and then someone say, "Oh, this is dangerous." No, we need to regulate this. And I think that's the reason, yeah.
And you throughout this conversation, you mentioned a lot of different tools. What's your favorite underrated tool that you use in your career that you wish more people would like jump on the train with?
Well, I don't know if it is underrated, but I think Delta Lake is a
Mhm.
great tool, and sometimes it's seen just a storage layer, and
Yeah,
I think it's way more than that. I
yeah.
don't. We are working with Delta. I guess Iceberg and other competitors are also good, but I don't know them. But with Delta, it helps a lot you to apply GDPR, to apply deletions, updates, to access transactions in your data. Also, the time travel feature is really helpful. It's really helpful because we all sometimes have delete data from production by error or something. So with time travel, you can fix it quickly and without drama. That's really great for data engineers. Also, the Delta log helps you to light the Metastore workload Metastore was before with Hive and Parquet a huge bottleneck in data environments, and still is in data environments that are not using Delta or Iceberg or something. Even though the metastore still exists, it's really light because you only need to check the metastore for table name, location, and so on. And all the partition information is in the Delta log. And also, the liquid clustering feature in Delta is another great issue because we data engineers spend a lot of time working with partition model in
Mhm.
the data. You need to deliver the data for several consumers. Each consumer is consuming the data in a different way, so you need to balance that. No, so you end up having 3 or 4 levels of partitions, and in the end, you have millions of partitions in the table, and the performance is degrading a lot. And with liquid clustering, you can avoid this. You just point to the columns that are important, and then the own delta engine will partition the data according to the consumer models. And also, I think it's only in the Databricks version, not in the open source. But in the Databricks version, you can even avoid listing the desired columns. So
Yeah.
the engine will detect itself the interesting columns for the consumers, and that's is a deal breaker for me.
No, it definitely I understand what you're saying. It definitely seems as though it can help speed up processes and that there's so much more benefit to incorporating this. What foundational skills would you advise a college student or early career data engineer to start cultivating now?
Well, foundational, I think you should go for a good software engineering background. We sometimes data engineers focus on SQL and data modeling, and this is really important. But software engineering is like the foundation of all. So if you
Mhm.
can deliver good code, clean code, maintainability, you know the importance of unit testing and all kind of testing. Is your code in production will be really better than if you don't. But without forgetting SQL, data modeling, and also distributed computing, because sometimes you start working with Spark or Flink or whatever distributed computing engine you are using, and you may start coding like if it's a regular engine of a regular engine, but in distributed computing it's really important how you go through the data, because the laziness and everything that the DAG, the actions, transformations in Spark. This is really important to know the why Spark works like it does.
No, I understand. I like that you're pushing to know the why behind using a product. I feel like, but how do you? There's so many tools and products to use in order to ingest data, whether it's like Estuary, Airbyte, housing the data. We have AWS, we have Snowflake, we have like there's so many tools. How do you? How would you suggest like someone who's new to data engineering, like getting accustomed to all these different tools without going crazy?
I think you should focus on the concepts instead of the tools. If you
Okay.
focus on a tool, you will be great with that tool. But in the end, if you know how distributed computing works, how SQL works, how to data model, you will be able to work with Databricks, with Snowflake, and whatever technologies the companies that you're working with choose. Maybe if you are more focused on Databricks, for instance, if you move to a Snowflake company, well, you have some issues at first. But if you know the foundations and the
Mhm.
whys and the how is working in the underneath, you will be able to tackle those issues and provide good value in a few time. Yes.
No, that's actually very good because I was just thinking back to, uh, like, for instance, when I used to work for data analytics, Tableau was the go-to, and then for one of my clients, they wanted to use Sigma computing, and I was like, "Oh, I've never used this before," and it's very similar. The only thing that was really different was just the modernness of it, the UI, of course, and just, like, the overall feel, but under the hood, it was like, "Okay, cool, I could have custom columns, let me custom SQLs," slightly different syntax, but if you have that basic foundation, it was easier for me to, like, learn. So that's actually true.
Yes,
Now
yes, that's true. You need to overcome the fear of new
yeah,
technologies.
I think that's the biggest thing. It's like that fear. It's like, "Oh god, another thing that is being thrown at me." Someone just recommended to me yesterday, this is my manager, shout out to him. He recommended that I check out this thing called Cube, I think it was?
Cube? Oh, I don't know.
Cube, I don't know. Not here anymore, but yeah, so he gave me another tool to check out. I'm like, "Oh no, another thing," but, um, dang it, I can't even find it in my notebook, but so it's just another tool that I have to, like I think it was in the conversation with Omni Analytics, so I think it has something to do with that. Now, what's the best piece of advice you received early in your career, and how do you pass it on to your students today?
The best piece of advice I received in my career, I think, is don't lose focus on soft skills because
Mm,
that is very typical. I know there is a lot of people talking about this, but I think it's key because no matter how good you are coding, if you can't communicate with stakeholders, your direct managers, or even your colleagues, because sometimes you have different thinking about something or different train of thought. But in the end, you code the same. But if you arrive to the same destination with another process, you have to communicate.
mm.
So soft skills are key. That's something that you don't need to you can't forget, and it's really hard to improve soft skills. There are courses and so on, but I think the only way to improve them properly is with practice. Practicing communicating, giving speeches and talks, and writing articles or something, and solving problems like at the end.
Looking ahead 5 years, how do you see the role of self-service data platforms evolving across corporations and startups?
In 5 years,
Mhm.
well, I guess the boom of generative AI, we have to mention it because otherwise it won't be a proper podcasting nowadays. I think the boom of generative AI will change many things that we are doing now by hand. With generative AI, you can focus on extracting value and forget about a lot of tasks that are really repetitive or difficult for a human to perform. Something like we used to spend a lot of time identifying personal data, but now with a little model in Bedrock, in AWS Bedrock, we can identify most of the personal data in 9 seconds. So that will improve a lot in 5 years, I guess. And I don't know what come later. Maybe with generative AI, we can finally move to real time because we
Ooh,
spend years talking about real time. But in my experience, companies do not really use real time, at least in the ones I work for, because in an hourly dashboard or an hourly analytics, it's more than enough. So they don't really need real time, the complexity of real time pipelines. But with generative AI, maybe we can pivot to that if the trust is there to automate process and automate decisions that nowadays are made by people.
yeah, going back to your comment on real time, we actually did, a podcast episode on who needs it and who doesn't, and it's really, critical to think about the use case before incorporating whether it's real time, because we do the same thing where it's like we have some hourly dashboards, some weekly dashboards, but it really depends on that that industry. So like finance, retail, real time's pretty important. Like Amazon delivery driver data, where they're going and which turn to take, that's real time. That needs to be. But some other companies like marketing doesn't need to be real time. Maybe some, yeah, I don't know. It really depends.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Maybe in factories also real time will be great because you can
Mhm.
detect issues with machinery or something. But maybe in the future.
Maybe in the future. Now, where do you think emerging technologies like lakehouse architectures or native Spark visualization capabilities will take us next?
Mm, Well, I think it's related to what we were talking now,
Yeah.
5 years. I think, well, regarding visualizations, Spark has a lot of native visualizations, especially in Databricks, and we are using it to build quick dashboards. So
Mhm.
we can reduce the time gap between the ingestion and the analytical steps of the data lifecycle. So you can build a quick dashboard, and okay, this is good, and then you can productivize it or whatever you need. But you can build a quick dashboard there to be able to analyze and tackle issues really fast. And regarding Lakehouse, the technology is already there because we are all storing every kind of data, images, videos, and tabular data. But maybe we as companies, we can focus on non-tabular data to extract value of it because nowadays most use cases I work with are with structured data and forgetting about unstructured data that could open new use cases to improve the process, the business.
So data storage. For what do you think is a typical amount of time companies should store data in?
The amount of time to store data.
Yeah. Like when do you think data becomes like unnecessary or like old or stale?
Well, I think it depends on many things. If you're working in real time, maybe you don't even need to store it only for um, to check what happened in the past or something like that. But it also depends on regulations. For instance, banks have to store data for I don't know 10 years, maybe I don't know, but a lot of years. So it depends on your use case, your company, and what you need. But most use cases, once you process the data, you don't usually need it again. But we have somehow a Diogenes syndrome, so we store a lot of data just in case. And
Um,
sometimes it comes in handy because you have a new use case. Okay, let's do it. Let's train this model with 5 years data.
yeah.
But other times you are storing just garbage, something that you won't use in never.
I think that the way that the world is heading and like the software engineering and data engineering, it's like everything's happening so much faster. People want reports faster, people want data faster. And I think it's kind of like social media where it's like we get a lot of information, half of it's just like noise and gunk. Um, it makes me wonder. And you know how like when you post like a video on social media, it has to be fresh, it has to be new. You can't repost, it can't be old or else it's gonna go on the future. I see that happening in a little bit to like the data, like the tech industries where the faster we go, the less like historical data is going to matter because all we were just like thinking about is like now, now, now. No one's like I don't it takes for the companies that are moving with like real time data now, it's like they want it. You know what I mean?
Yes, yes. We usually are on that kind of use cases. Maybe
Yeah.
in machine learning, you need to store data to train models with more
Yeah.
historical data, but in analyticals and decisions, you don't really need that amount of data usually. Usually,
Usually.
sometimes, claro, there are a lot of use cases, and sometimes you need it.
Yeah. Now, what are you most excited or worried about when you think of data engineering's future? AI regulation, ethical data usage, or real-time analytics at every layer?
Oof, that's a good question because I am excited about all of that. I think ethical data usage will be a huge deal in the future, same as privacy was a few years ago and still is, but it was new a few years ago. So ethical is something that we need to focus a lot in the following years.
Mhm.
Why is this model being recommended that? How would you train this model? That kind of stuff. That's related to AI regulation, the other things you said, and also real time. I personally have little work with real time,
Mhm.
and I really would like to try it.
Yeah. So now we're gonna move on to some rapid fire questions. Are you ready?
Yes,
Okay. First thing you open in the morning, Slack, VS Code, or LinkedIn?
Slack.
If Spark disappeared tomorrow, what's the tool you'd reach for instead?
Instead of Spark, maybe thinking fast, Flink, maybe?
Wait, which one?
Flink.
Wait,
Apache
okay.
Flink.
Now, real-time analytics or data processing, which one would you rather optimize for and why?
Or batch. Real time or batch?
Yeah,
I think real time would be
yeah,
great to
you love
optimize,
real time.
yes.
You like working with real time data. And those are all the questions that I have. Like, Sergio, thank you so much for hopping on, making the time. This was a great conversation. I learned a lot.
No, thanks to you. It's been a pleasure.